Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. So happy to have you back joining us on another episode. And today, I'm super excited to have Janet Scalzo. I'm not sure, Janet, did I say that with the proper Italian accent? Did that sound good?
The nice inflection, very nice.
It's Scalzo. Janet Scalzo. Oh, okay, very cool. Yeah. And we're not here to talk about Italy today. Maybe we could. Maybe that's another episode. I don't know. I have a feeling you probably have some things to share about Italy. And super excited to discuss what we agreed to talk about was your business, and that's Canyon Callings. Okay, help me out here.
Canyon Calling Adventures for Women. We take small groups of women all over the world on active vacations. Fun, affordable, active vacations for women. That's my elevator speech.
Oh, that was so much better than I could have done, even if I'd gotten it right. I think I was so caught up on the Italian accent, I forgot what we were talking about. So anyway, thank you so much. That's a great summary of kind of what you're doing, and I want to know how you got into doing what you're doing, because that's super important. Most tour operators that are in this space have an interesting story about how they got there, what they're doing, and what inspired them. So I'd love to hear about that.
Okay, Jason. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. This is always a lot of fun. So Canyon Calling has been around since 1996. I am not the founder of the company. I acquired it in 2014. So coming up on 10 years under my leadership. And it was originally a love child from a pink Jeep operator in Sedona, Arizona. Yeah,
I've been on a pink Jeep tour in Sedona. Yeah. All right, very cool.
Yeah, she used to drive groups of co-ed groups around on the rocks, and she noticed something different. If she experienced a female-only group, they would ask more questions. They were more comfortable. They'd arrange a lunch afterwards. It was a kind of an instant bonding thing. So she got the idea, the concept, and it's not a brand new one at the time. There are some other companies out there that have been around for as long as we have. Very few, but a few. And she created Canyon Calling Adventures for Women. She operated that for almost right around 18 years or so. And I was traveling in Sedona. I had been in the corporate golden handcuffs for about 20 years, all related to travel, hospitality, technology, operations. I love the travel industry. And we met, really funny story, if you've got the time.
We've got the time. The floor is yours.
Okay. All right. Well, So I'm sitting in a pizza pub, and I notice a table of women over across the bar, and they kept looking at me. And so finally I turned and waved to them, and then they came over as they're going out to pay their check. And I said, "We're so sorry that we're staring at you, but you really remind us of a friend that we have. She lives in Minneapolis," which I lived in at the time. She lives in Minneapolis, and her name is Janet. And so, of course, that was like, okay, this is a totally Sedona moment. And we laughed, and she said, "If you land here, because if you visited here more than 3 times in Sedona, you usually end up living here or at least dreaming about it. So if you land here, give me a call. You got a friend." And the business card was Canyon Calling Adventures for Women. So I go, it's the founder's card. So I go home. This is back in 2013. So I go back to Minneapolis, back to my corporate job, and it is just in my heart and soul. So I give her a call and say, "Do you want a partner? Do you want anything else?" help with the business. She said, I want to sell it and move back to New Zealand. So long story short, quit my job, sold my house, moved across the country and bought this business. And it's been just beautiful ever since.
Janet, help me figure this out, because maybe I missed something or maybe I didn't. So the friend Janet from Minneapolis,
apparently I have a doppelganger. So there's two Janets in Minneapolis that look
okay, all right.
that they knew. Yeah. Yeah. But that's what they were looking at me for. And that's what got the introduction. And that's how I met the founder. And that is how I came to acquire the business.
Gotcha. So the other Janet wasn't the founder of Canyon Calling that happened to also live in Minneapolis. Yeah. Okay. I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes. So thanks for bringing me up to speed. That is super cool. And, you already mentioned kind of, that she had an observation that when she had a group of women, it was a different experience. And when you were describing a group of women sitting at the pizza parlor and that they came over and actually engaged in conversation with you, I'm like, yeah, that's a woman thing.
Yep.
So totally. I'm seeing all the connections, and honestly, I've been in this long enough, and I've actually I've spent a lot of time with women on trips. I spent a lot of time in the fly fishing travel business, and oftentimes we'd have group trips, and the guys would come and go fishing, and the ladies would go do the other tours, the other activities. And not that some of them don't fish, because obviously they did, but I always really enjoyed hanging out with the people that were not so focused on fishing, how many fish they caught, how big the fish was. And the groups of the ladies were always so much more fun to go hang out with. And I wasn't a spouse, so they didn't care what they said. They just said whatever they wanted to say. They didn't have their boyfriend there, their husband, and it was just so much fun. And I've often thought, man, I would love to have a travel business for women, but people look at me and they say, Jason, that's creepy. So I didn't do it.
Good.
But I can also understand the why behind that. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that. And I also want to hear more about, because you were already working in hospitality, tourism, it sounds like marketing, that type of thing. How did you get into that? What was the before that?
Oh, before that, I was working with a company called Carlson Companies. Now that I'm bringing you way back, right?
I recognize the name. Yeah. Carlson Wagonlit, right?
Yeah, Carlson Wagonlit was one of their purchases in the travel industry. I was back even before all of that. So I started out as a travel agent and then worked in their call center. So my corporate life was primarily with Carlson Marketing, Carlson Wagonlit, Carlson corporate. Yeah. So, but it took me all over the world, numerous positions, tons of experience, wonderful experiences. And it just got to the point where I sat down and decided, this is not what I want to do with the last third of my life. And so I went to Sedona to think about things, right? Got in the vortex, got my juju on and met
that pizza spot right there in the vortex. Yeah. And for anybody that's listening and is not familiar with Sedona, it's maybe you could probably describe the vortex. Actually, you know what? I think that'd be interesting. Tell us what a vortex is.
Well, a vortex is a recognized energy area, and it usually is either male or female, depending on the energy, which way it spirals. Paige, what was her name? Paige Masters, I believe, was the one that coined the term in the 80s. But yes, Sedona has known vortices in the region, and it's just there's water running under the city. Oak Creek Canyon is through there, so of course water always brings up the energy conversations, and of course the iron and the red rocks. And long story short, it all comes together to be a very spiritual and just a really beautiful place, especially if you're looking for guidance within yourself. And so that's what I did. I went there and I sat on a red rock on a vortex. And the next day I met the founder, and here we are. And here we are.
So cool. Yeah, it is a special place. Having lived in Arizona, lived in Phoenix, every time I go up to Sedona, it's just a special place. I didn't really fully grasp the concept of the vortexes or vortices, I guess if it's plural, vortice. Yeah. And I get it though. You can't. I don't think you can go there and not get the sense of just. I guess I'm just going to say magic or connection or whatever it is. So, and I know, and as you already mentioned, um, it's not uncommon to go there to kind of figure out what am I going to do with the next third of my life or whatever portion of it that you think you've got left. So that's pretty cool.
Huh.
When was the first moment? But you did get into tourism it sounds like your first job was as a travel agent, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, travel agent. There was an association of travel agents I worked with, but it was all to do with travel and hospitality. And I just loved it. Love people, love traveling, love discovering different cultures, eating the
Did
food.
did you know that as a child growing up, or when you were at what point in your life did you just kind of like, oh, that's my thing?
Probably 4 or 5.
Oh, I love it.
Because I would run away and have adventures on my own. And then I would come back when it was dark. But, I would come back with some tadpoles and some leaves and perhaps a few animals. And yeah, it was
Okay.
destiny.
So it was destiny. Your parents probably knew all along. Yeah, she's gonna go do something. I don't want to say crazy. I say crazy in a good way. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's super cool. Okay, so you left the corporate world. Did you move right to Arizona? I mean,
I did. I
but you
moved
live
to
in
Sedona.
Tucson, right? Or you moved
Uh,
right to Sedona?
Moved to
Okay.
Sedona. Yep. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm a bit of a gypsy. So I've been here for less than 10 years. And I've been in Sedona, Flagstaff, to Mesa, and now Tucson. But yeah, we originally landed in Sedona, stayed there for about a year and a half. Beautiful place, wonderful energy, um, but not real conducive to, there's no public airport, little things like that. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
but it was a great place to start. Work with the founder for the first year. So we had a really smooth transition. And yeah, it's just
What
great
did
spot.
what did the business, what did her program look like as far as the tours she was offering, and how has that changed since then to now? Is it I mean, it's not the same because things change, but I'm curious, like what did you do to change the business from where it was and to where it is now?
Well, a number of things, really. First off, I hired help.
Ah,
And
that
yes, so, which of course, by duplicating yourself, you can expand the business because I
mhm.
wanted to offer more tours. I wanted to offer soft adventures, which we do. We're introducing retreats in 2024.
Okay.
Um, we're doing slow travel. I've got a lot more international travel. And I've got a group of wonderful women all over the world that helped me bring this to life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
And
very cool.
yeah, thanks. We have a lot of fun doing it. Women owned, women led, women operated. Well, we let the dudes in once in a while, like a rafting guide here or there, but a fishing guide perhaps.
Well, hey, sign me up because I meant it when I said that earlier. What I was saying, it's like anybody that's been in tourism for a while, especially adventure tourism, I think would would agree that there is a difference. There is a difference. The dynamics of the group are huge, and the group of women is just a lot of fun. I mean, they'll say things that guys are just too intimidated to if they don't. Their self esteem. They don't want to admit they don't know something,
Yeah.
and yeah, so. All right. So, what's the biggest lesson you learned? I don't want to, maybe we can call it a mistake, a problem, something that came along that you're like, man, because I trust you're the type of person that learns from those things and sees them
I'd
as
like to think
opportunities,
so. Yeah.
right? And opportunities happen. And I know I've made quite a few in my life. But as far as your business, especially buying a business that, yes, it's tourism and it's a little different than what you were doing for sure. So, what was the biggest mistake you made or the biggest lesson you learned early on, other than you needed to hire people?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I heard that loud and clear.
Yeah. Well, I don't want this to sound bad, but we had one, one male guide, which we didn't really agree to, but certain circumstances, it had to happen. And we had a male guide with us for 9 days on a trip, and it changed the whole dynamic of the group. So that will
I don't
never
I don't
happen
know. I
again.
don't know if I cannot ask this. You don't have to answer this, but you were maybe avoiding answering this, but I don't have a filter. Okay.
Yeah.
Certain circumstances we had to agree to. I heard a lot of resistance there, and I'm thinking, what's behind that? Can you tell us any more about that, or should we just move on?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about it. The company of men changes the dynamic of the group. You brought this up as well. If you just got a bunch of women together, I mean, they will be giggling and pouring out their hearts within the first hour. When we're out hiking, it's not, come on, keep up. It's, let's stop. Let's take a group photo. Oh, look, there's a deer. And yeah, we'll get there when we get, that kind of thing. We support each other, and there's not the competition that you likely see in a co-ed group. They'll eat more, they'll eat harder, they'll laugh harder. It's just a whole different thing. And love the dudes, but it is a nice break when we get away and just, be girls again, really.
Hey, and I hear all that, and I'm curious, did you feel compelled, like obligated to hire this particular, and we're not going to mention any names or specifics,
No,
but and the reason I'm asking is because sometimes in the world, there's pressure for companies that traditionally hire women to hire men. There's pressure for companies that hire men to hire women, to welcome them in, and equality and all this. So I actually imagine trying to run a business where we're women owned, women led, we only hire women. I can imagine there might be some pressure. So that's what I'm sensing when you say that I felt like we had to hire this guy. So what is that?
And we didn't hire him. He's an owner of a company that helped us put together the trip in an international destination. And I think his intent was very good. And he wanted to come and meet me because I go on all of the international trips the first time that all the trips, the first time that they're run, to make sure everything is as it should be, smoothly operated, deliverable, hotels check, restaurants check, activities good, safeties, and all of that. And I think his intent was to spend some time with the owner of the company, and it did not go very well, just from the sense that he was offended if the women didn't want to go on a hike. And I'm like, hey, it's your vacation. I'm not going to make you go. You want to sit at the beach and have a pina colada? You do you, girl. This is your vacation, right? Yep. So that was a little bit of friction there, but it was smoothed out. It was nothing horrible.
He was not a bad person. Just the dynamics are different, and he was just part of the deal. And I appreciate that you shared that because that probably was a really good lesson.
Very good lesson
that impacted so many things along the way.
Yeah.
And we can be grateful when those things present themselves, because sometimes we don't pick up on lessons. We keep I'm speaking for myself now. Just kind of keep making the same mistakes and have to do it 20, 30 times before I finally realize, oh, maybe I'm bringing something into the group that doesn't fit with the group. And I should have addressed that the first time instead of the 20th time. So good on you. That's cool.
Thanks.
I love that. Do the women that join you, do they already immediately understand why it's women's group and they just are all about it? Or do they just kind of sometimes just accidentally show up and then change their perspective? Do you have women that contact you and say, well, why can't I bring a partner? Or what kind of things come up as you see the women?
Yeah, they can bring a partner as long as it's a woman.
Yeah.
But no, most of the women that are looking for this type of adventure are very intentional in their search. And there are quite a number of them out there now. Many of the companies are very well run, and there's new ones every day. So, it's becoming more popular. 10 years ago, it was totally new to me, and it's still new to very many women that I speak with as well. But it's becoming more popular. But yeah, they know what they're signing up for, and they're either like, I'm going to bring a sister. I've had a grandma bring her granddaughter. Of course, we only take them 18 years and over, but it was a graduation present. So, we love the multi-generational energy as well. So we just see a little bit of everything.
It's super cool. So, and I've got an opportunity to, before I ask that next question, in the fly fishing space, we saw that as well. there's a few amazing fly fishing operators out there that are women that lead groups. There's one called I don't even need to mention any names. They're out there. And it's always super exciting and fun for, like, I'm not on the trip, but I see them doing it. I think, yeah, that's cool. My mom, is single, and I'm talking to her all the time, like, hey, you should go on one of these groups, and I completely get it. I think it's great. And I'm going to ask you this. I also think there's some people that don't understand men only trips. And so is it fair to say, okay, well, if women only trips, if there's a real good reason that women should go on women only trips, is there equally a good reason that men should go on men only trips? I'm sure you've thought about this more than I have. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. This was about year two when I was in this space. And I thought, "Oh, I should really have a men's um, option and an opportunity, men's trips and
Mhm.
just, a different arm of the business."
Mhm.
And so I started interviewing brother-in-laws, brothers, friends. Hey, Bob, would you go on a trip, show up, spend a week with men that you've never met before, share rooms, and go out and do stuff together? And they're like, no, not only no, but hell no. So it was just resounding feedback. I know, I thought it was a good idea too. Jason, would you do that? Would you show up not knowing any? Here, here's 10 men. We're
Well,
going to go out in the woods for a week.
see, that's where, like, I could unpack this. I'm like, okay, what's underneath my, preconceived ideas and notions? Yeah, I get it. And I've led men's trips, but primarily because of the activity, not so much because of the men. Like, it
Sure.
wasn't, we didn't market it as a men's trip. We'd say we're going to the Amazon and we're going to fly fish for peacock bass. And they just kind of self-select that way.
Yeah.
So yes, I would go on a trip with a bunch of men, but honestly, if it was marketed as a trip for a bunch of men, I would have all kinds of stories in my head about what that means. And
Hmm.
some of them are not very flattering to men in general, if I were to share what I think that might mean. So yeah, I probably would not go to a company that says we do men's trips to South America. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. And I also get why people have ideas and attitudes about, oh, men's trip. It's just because you guys want to go do something you shouldn't be doing. And women's trips are like, oh, because you want to go, like, be yourselves and relax and have fun.
Well, women are innately tribal, right? We sit in
Mhm.
circles. Men sit next to each other, women sit facing each other. It's the
Mhm.
whole, it's look at that little primordial thing at the back of your neck. It's the communication. It's there. And
Well, I've heard that the women's, like, the part of the brain that controls, speech and communication for women is like three times larger than a man. And men have another part of their brain that's probably three times larger. So yeah, I get that. That's super cool. Because I suspect you just, like, have seen all kinds, without going into sharing any personal stories about people that are on your trips. But I can just imagine the the revelations that have come out of your trips, the honesty, the vulnerability, the conversations that some of these women probably haven't had, have been holding inside for 20 years. Now we're getting a little off topic, but holding these things inside for 20 years in a marriage that may or may not be right, whatever.
yeah,
And then they're around a bunch of women, and for the first time, they feel like they can really share how they feel, because they couldn't share it with their husband. They don't want to share it with their father. They don't want to share it with their brother. They don't want to share it with their friends back home, because their friends back home know their partners. And it's like therapy. You're really a therapist, aren't you?
it is. Yeah, that's one of our many roles here. We're a mobile therapy unit.
But what's great is women will sign up for therapy.
Yeah. Oh,
So it's a good business model. You tell a guy, oh, we're therapists, you're going to come on this trip and share all your deep dark secrets and emotions and be yourself. No thanks.
yeah, they'll run away with like their hair's on fire. No, this is yeah, it's very empowering, and it's very like I come back to the tribal, but it really is, and we're all about just be yourself and enjoy each other, enjoy yourself, do this for you. We've had women come on trips that are going through, they're at a crossroads in their life. They've lost grown children. Any all the tragedies and all the the best that life can throw at you. And they come on these trips to reinvest in themselves. And, you know, they just sit back. Somebody else is driving, planning, picking the restaurants, just telling me what I need to wear tomorrow and what to throw in my backpack. And they're happy as larks. And together, and they make such wonderful bonds, great friendships. And they come back on these trips time and again with their new friends. So it's just it. You can tell I'm excited about this. One of my greatest passions is the travel is fabulous, but the connection and the empowerment of women is really at the heart of what we do.
I love it because you're kind of really taking a whole nother level, because I believe that adventure travel and this type of tourism is about connection more than any other one thing. It's not about the river, the mountain, the places, not the animals, the nature. It's all part of it that combines, but it's really about the connection. So even for guys, and because we like to connect, we maybe connect differently, and you've taken it to a whole nother level of connection that really, it's like adventure tourism squared. Yes.
Yeah.
And when I say adventure tourism, I'm not talking about skydiving or wingsuiting in Switzerland or scuba diving with sharks off the coast of South Africa. For me, adventure travel is anytime you step outside your comfort zone with an open, curious mind. It can be literally anything. Walking, I'm in Colombia right now. I had an adventure travel trip last night when I finished some recordings last night, and I walked 3 blocks down at about 10 o'clock at night and found this little kind of a restaurant, I guess. It's basically a guy's house, and he's cooking chorizo and arepas and potatoes on his front porch, and there's 5 or 6 very inebriated Colombians enjoying themselves, and I sat right down in the middle of them, and I said, "What's for dinner?" And that was adventure travel to me. That was that was just as good as jumping out of an airplane, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the connection part, you're able to combine the two. That's really, really cool. I'm happy we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
So for the woman who for my mom, Mom, are you listening? I hope you're listening to this. That's sitting there thinking, I want to connect. Maybe I'm single. I don't do a lot of stuff, but I want to connect, but I don't know, like a group of women. I don't know if it's not natural to them. I think you've already covered a lot of things, but is there anything else that you would add to somebody that's maybe a little skeptical or a little bit concerned that would kind of ease their concerns?
Yeah. And I think part of that would be maybe if you've never done a woman's trip before and you're not ready to be a roommate with somebody you don't know, even though it works out beautifully. And we rotate roommates at each change of lodging so everybody gets to know each other first.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But we also offer single rooms. There's a supplement. But if you want to come on a trip, haven't really experienced this, not quite sure, and then get your own room. And then you're with the group during the day, and then you can, crash in your own space at night. I think that would be a really good way to go. Perhaps take a shorter trip and or try a soft adventure, unless you're really fit and want to get out there. And, I've never tried, for example, somebody who's never tried zip lining through the jungles of Arenal in Costa Rica. You got to do it. It's a bucket list thing that you got to do, but if somebody wants to let's just do some hiking in Joshua Tree National Park and then go to Temecula for a wine tasting, there's different adventures. And I hear also a lot, Jason, that people, women, that they're afraid of holding you back. How fit do I have to be? All of that stuff.
Yep.
And I hear that so often. It's so common as women, especially of a certain demographic, that, you don't want to impose, you don't want to just come on and have fun. And I would encourage anyone, just give me a call. I'll talk you off the ledge, because we're just out there to have a good time. You don't need to bring your makeup or your hair dryer or any of that crap. Let's just throw our hair under a hat and get out and explore nature together and have some laughs.
I love it. I'm shocked by this conversation. I don't know why I'm shocked by this conversation, but so for anybody that's listening to this podcast that can't see your face, Janet, that's the part of it, right? Because communication, words, tone of voice, maybe they're getting some of that, but just the energy in your face and the passion for what you're doing. I just want to point it out so people can hear that I'm sitting here watching you on a Zoom screen, and I see it in your face, and I'm literally sitting here thinking, I mentioned my mom, but I'm also thinking, my daughter,
Yeah.
and other people I know in my life. I'm like, I just literally just there for a moment. I was like, oh, my daughter would enjoy this. I don't think she's ever, I mean, she has groups of girlfriends and they'll go do, she's pretty outdoorsy. But actually a trip like what you're describing is really like, I'm imagining her in Costa Rica with a bunch of women of different ages, so she might be a little younger than the average woman in the group. My mom might be a little younger. She might listen to this. So I'm going to say my mom's very young too. And, but there's a mix of people that from different backgrounds, and what a great opportunity to open up and have those conversations that
Absolutely
would probably feel awkward in other places. So that's pretty cool. Okay. I think I beat that horse to death. Thank you
for that.
For indulging me. And I want to discuss a little bit about, you've managed to drop in a few different types of trips. I'd like to get a full kind of breadth, not every trip itinerary. I think we could probably do a bunch of episodes discussing every trip in detail. And I want people to get a full breadth of kind of what it is you're doing, where you're going, maybe some of your favorites, something you say might prompt somebody to say, "Ooh, I've always wanted to go there. Women's trip, cool." And they'll make the connection that they might not otherwise make if I don't ask this question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say to start out, do something domestic, one of the domestic trips in the US, instead of just jumping into an international trip. If you've traveled a lot, check out our international trips. Oh my God. We've got a new Greek island hopping trip that is to die for. I don't know if you've been there recently,
Not
but
yet. No.
the food.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, the foods of it, and we're also foodies, by the way, Jason. So nobody goes hungry on our trips, and we eat primarily at restaurants, and you can order whatever you want off the menu. So yeah, we accommodate all dietary.
Actually, you mentioned that for a reason, because you've been doing this for a while, and I sense the experience, and that's why you mentioned that. But as you said it, I was like, oh, that's a good point, because that's the other thing with women. I believe, this is my story, is that they tend to be a little bit more particular, maybe about food choices. They, are a little bit more likely to try and stick to some sort of diet, where guys have a tendency to just not always eat the healthiest food or whatever. So, but the flexibility of dining in restaurants, like you said, where you can order, if whether you're a vegan, you're not doing, you're doing keto, whatever you're doing, because there's so many women. I've worked in this business long enough to know that when I read dietary requirements for people, in the trip planning stage, it's usually the woman that has the dietary requirements, and and I'm not knocking that. I think it's good. I think it actually means that they're more self-aware and think about what they're doing more than guys. But that's a good point, is that ability to not have to worry about, oh, well, what if I go on the trip and they put steak in front of me every night, and I don't want to be that one person like holding you back, right? You mentioned that already. I don't want to be that one person that's the person on the trip that's always complaining and never has what she needs. So that's good. Flexibility is good.
Yep. A lot of flexibility. There's, I don't know where to start. I mean, there's so much to choose from. I love the domestic trips. We do a lot in the Western US. Maybe perhaps a little partial to that because we're very familiar with it, but it's also some of the most beautiful country. Again, it's opinion in the States. So we offer a lot of trips to the Western US. That would be a good place to start. Maybe a shorter trip, maybe a soft adventure. Get your single supplement lined up if you want. Otherwise, just jump right in and join the fray. That most of them do. It's built for solo travelers, so they don't have to pay a single supplement. Like I say, we roommate them and then we rotate them at each change of lodging.
Do women think about snoring? I don't know why that's coming up, but for me, it's coming up.
Yes,
I can imagine. I think women are sensitive to that, right? Yeah. Guys can snore, and guys just get away with it. Like okay, we snore, whatever. But I know I've known enough women in my life to know that they don't want other people to hear them snoring.
Yeah. So we tell them, bring your PAP. If you have a, what do you call it, apnea machine, they're getting smaller these days. Bring your breathe right strips, get your own room, room you with another snorer. We always figure it out.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. So Western United States, rafting, right? Some trekking, just rattle off a few things that, like, keywords that people like, oh yeah, that's something I'm into.
Whitewater rafting. We love to zip line, hiking, We're also water babies, so we'll do kayaking, SUP, cut some canoeing. Northern Idaho. Wow, I just thought it was all about potatoes for the longest time. And then I took a trip there. It is stunning in the Sawtooth Mountains.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do a lot of water sports there and zip. The rafting on the Payette is gorgeous. And then, of course, we do the Rogue River, Crater Lake. We sprinkle in national parks. We've got a national parks collection. So those are a lot of the U.S. There's Key West. There's Asheville. I mean, there's a little bit of something for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, for example, where I'm from, I do a fall foliage trip every October back to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And we're up in the Boundary Waters canoe area. So we're up there and enjoying the fall foliage, spotting a moose or a bear here or there. It's just amazing. It's a big, beautiful world out there. We've also added, I got to tell you, Croatia. We've had Iceland forever. One of the finest guys in Iceland works for us. She's just a gem. Italy, Tuscany. We love our places where there's incredibly good food.
Janet, I have not eaten all day, so please, we can't go too far into that conversation. Just the word Tuscany made my mouth water. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for that. No, we will talk more about that because I'm interested. And okay, and you mentioned Costa Rica. Anything else in South America?
Costa Rica, we have a trip to Peru.
I shouldn't say anything else. Anybody listening to this, I know that Costa Rica is not in South America. I guess I can throw that out there, or they're going to quit listening. They're going to quit listening to my show. Yes. So anyway, so what do you have in South America?
In South America, we have Peru. We're looking at Galapagos. In Central America, we've got, of course, Costa Rica. We're going to be announcing a new Panama trip. We reinvigorated the itinerary, and I think it's amazing. It's going to be running in April of 2024. So just a little off-shoulder season, so we don't get throngs of tourists. You know, we like to we choose our departure dates for not only the weather, but, impact of tourists and just the best time of the year to go, really.
Okay, very cool. And so Europe, South America, Central America, obviously North America. What are you doing?
Doing Alaska.
Anything else that people should know you're doing? Yep.
Yeah, Alaska, Canada, Mexico. Of course, this is also all of North America.
I want to ask you about Mexico.
Yeah.
Because there might be somebody here listening that has a preconceived idea about some places in the world. And we're talking about women and women trips, group trips, and safety is the word that tends to come up. I don't know, in my world, maybe not yours. What do you like, just Mexico? What do you think people should know about Mexico around the word safety? I know that's very open-ended.
Yeah.
Tell me
be careful of the water.
Perfect. I love that response. I can second that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's and you're in Colombia right now, right?
What's interesting? What's interesting here is in Medellin, Colombia, tap water is amazing. Like I don't drink bottled water. I've spent about a total of a year over the last 2 years. And just straight out of the tap. Tastes amazing. So I don't know. I'm just mentioning that. I'm not sure about other places in Colombia, but so anyway, so Mexico, watch out for the water.
Yeah, but watch out for the water. Stay in groups. I mean, it's common sense stuff, right, Jason? It's common sense. And when we're on tour in Mexico, we have an organized tour itinerary. We have hired drivers, so we're not hopping in taxi cabs and doing all this. We have local guides, so they take us to the places that we, for dinners and to see the sights, to go snorkeling. I mean, everything is prearranged and set up ahead of time. So it's not like we're walking off a cruise ship and then going up to some dude that's hanging out by the side of the road with a sign saying, you want to go do, want to go snorkeling?
Yeah, want a city tour? Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we stay together. And if anybody wants to wander off on their own, it doesn't happen very often. And thank goodness nothing has happened, unsafe with us where there are any repercussions, but stay together.
I'm not suggesting that you always have to go with a tour operator to be safe in Mexico. So anybody listening to that, that's not what I'm saying. And um, it's a great idea because you also just have access. Because if you're by yourself in an area where you feel like maybe you're not safe, you're going to really limit your experiences. Like I'm not going to I'm going to be in my room by 6 p.m. every evening because I don't know what's out there. But you go with someone like you, Janet. I have a sneaking suspicion your groups have probably been out eating street tacos a little later in the evening than maybe someone would do if they were traveling to Mexico by themselves. Is that
I
probably
encourage
true?
that behavior too.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And when you've got somebody with you that's like, yeah, this is great. Either you should go do this or we should go do this. Let's go do this. You're much more likely to do it. When
Yeah.
you're by yourself and you're thinking, okay, I'm brave and strong and I'm not afraid of anything. I'm going to go to Mexico by myself. But then you're sitting in your room because you're really not sure. Like, because you
Yeah.
don't, because you're also the other part of you is I don't want to be stupid.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I
Bravery
don't want
and
to be that.
stupidity, fine line
Yeah,
sometimes.
I don't want to be that person that went out to get tacos and then later on somebody's like, well, you should have known better. That's the worst neighborhood and the worst city in the whole country. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So it is good to have some local advice. And one of the things we talk about Mexico and we used to the company I was working for, we'd send quite a few people to Mexico and quite often, and these are fishermen usually, and they'd be on the phone and, well, I don't want to go to Mexico, and they'd go to Belize, they'd go to other places, but they get this, they see some news or they get a story in their head about one particular thing. Well, I don't want to go to Mexico. And it was so hard for me not to sometimes say, you know what, I was there 3 weeks ago. You would have been amazed at the number of, again, I'm trying to say this, women traveling in the airport. Like if you go to the airport in Cancun, it's like, and you see just a wide variety of people that are adventurous, that are confident, that are with their friends or even by themselves. And when you go there and you see what's happening there, it's hard not to say to this big tough fisherman guy, like, dude,
Then,
if you just go there and look around and see everybody, all these big tough women that are not afraid to go, maybe
yeah. Yeah.
maybe you change your story.
Lead a horse to water.
Yeah. I remember the conversation was about Belize. And I had lived in Belize for a while and I was having a conversation with this guy. He said, well, I heard something about something happened on the border with Guatemala. So I really don't want to go there. And I kind of already knew where he was from. And I said, where do you live? Remind me where you live. And he said, I'm in Oakland.
Uh-huh.
And like 3 weeks earlier, there was a big shootout thing with the guy. It was, you might even remember hearing about it. There was a big thing where a few police officers didn't make it through the day. And I was just like, it was so interesting to me that that we can live in some of these places in the US and have these ideas about other places in the world, just completely based on a news story or something like that. And if we're not willing to put ourselves out there a little bit and go explore and see for ourselves what's really out there, it's kind of sad, I guess, really where I'm going with that is. So anybody listening to this, I just encourage you to do something, especially a group trip with you. I mean, that would be amazing, an amazing way to do it.
Yeah. Travel opens your mind and your heart and your eyes. And
Yeah.
yeah. So
That's why I named my business Big World Made Small.
there you
The
go.
podcast
Yeah.
is because I recognize that the world feels really big until you start traveling. And then the more you travel, the smaller it
The
gets.
smaller.
I came up with the name when I was in Asia this past summer. And I'd never been to Asia, and Asia was so far away. I'd always wanted to go. It was like, oh my God, I always want to go to Asia. I've been to a bunch of places, always want to go to Asia, but it seems so far away. And don't get me wrong, the plane flight's a long flight.
Yes.
But other than that, it's not so far away. And you get there and you realize, oh my gosh, this is the place that I imagined as a fantasy for so long to come here. And I'm here and I can come back anytime I want. And, I mean, it's like we can go to all these places that we think are so far away. And then you go there and you're like, I mean, this picture behind me for anybody, I know some people are just listening, but I'm sitting in front of a backdrop of a mural in Penang, which is also known as Georgetown in Malaysia. And I use this as backdrop because to me, that was a big adventure to go to Asia. And there's these two kids sitting on a bike and the little girl's steering the bike, riding the bike, and it looks like her little brother's on the back, and he looks terrified. And it just has everything about an adventure to me, and like I can imagine this girl being a tour guide someday, right?
Yeah.
It's like let's
Hey,
go,
buddy.
hang on, we're going for it. And so anyway, yeah, I just think travel is. I think I also read something that's like the only thing that you. I don't remember the quote, but I just saw it recently. I think it's the best way to spend money that
I
there is.
agree. And my one of my key philosophies is travel because money returns, time doesn't. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because that's what travel really is about the time. And I'm not ignorant enough to realize that, resources, it takes financial resources oftentimes to do it. And if you have those financial resources, I think it would be a shame not to take advantage of it. Of course, I'm living full time on the road, so I'm not like everybody. And I recognize that not everybody in the world, including many people in my family, don't necessarily see it the same way. But for me, I it's pretty amazing. So I just always encourage people to do it. And even if you've never done it, just go do it. Just check it out. I've got somebody I've worked with, actually, as a single lady that I've worked with in the past on some projects, that just took her first solo trip with a group of women to Mexico, and she had to get a passport for it. She had never traveled outside the country.
Oh,
The resources were not an issue, time not an issue. She'd been retired for a while. She really realistically could go anywhere in the world she'd want to go, but hadn't. She got a passport and she went to Mexico with this group, and she was so excited. I've had a lot of conversations with her about it. And she was just like, oh my gosh, Jason, I had no idea. And she's just like so thirsty now. And that wasn't even an organized tour per se. It was more of a retreat with a coach that she'd been working with. And it was just like, it was so cool to see, because I did Zoom calls with her. So cool to just see the look on her face when she came back. And she's like, wow, I had no idea. And so it can really be life changing. And you see it every day with your clients. And
yeah, I've heard
right.
that.
What else should I be asking you? We've been talking a lot about that stuff. Great stuff. What else would you like? What did I not ask you that I should have asked you? Or what do you think that people listening to this really need to hear before we wrap it up?
I think the last story that you just told about this woman who finally got her passport and went on her first international trip. I know some people that same situation, never been out of the States. The world is a beautiful place, especially the people and all the creatures that are in it. And you go out there and start traveling, and you'll truly become a global citizen.
Mhm.
It just, like I say, it opens your eyes, it opens your heart, it opens your mind. And if you have any hesitation, just step off the ledge and jump into it and do it. And it could change your life.
Have you ever? I mean, I was talking about this with someone earlier today. It's like there's very, very few people in the world that I've ever met that regretted any trip. Like even if things went sideways and they had some experiences that they were not planning, very seldom do I hear people say, "Man, I wish I had not gone. I wish I never would have got my passport. I wish I wouldn't have met these people that I met."
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when bad things happen, because you know what, bad things happen at home. You can fall off your toilet and get hurt.
That's
You
right.
know, and so it's like, okay, I know things happen. I know people might say, well, I went to Africa and I sprained my ankle when I jumped down off of the Land Rover or something. Okay, and maybe it was a pain in the butt to get treated because you didn't have the hospital or the urgent care right up there. I get that completely, but
But
even
you got
that,
a great story.
yeah, you got a great. Every time I see somebody with a cast, I look at them and I think, man, I hope they have a good story behind that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so disappointing. And I'll ask, because if you haven't figured out, I just ask. I'll
Yeah.
be like, "Do you have a good story behind that?" And they'll say, "Oh, I stubbed my toe in my bedroom or something." I'm like, and
Look something up.
you gotta come up with something. And I know what happens, but it's like you gotta come up with something better than that. And
Yeah.
when they're like, "Yeah, I went mountain climbing and a rock hit me in the head, and that's why I'm a little slow to respond to questions." I'm like, okay, that's a cool story. I mean, I shouldn't share this, but I got robbed in Mexico. I'm going to share this anyway. I got robbed in Mexico by a police officer. And I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but I got robbed by a police officer. I went to get tacos. They stopped me, and I looked like maybe I was out buying something else. I don't know. They stopped me, and very nice. They were very nice. Pulled my wallet out of my pocket, took the money, put the wallet back in the pocket, said, okay, you're free to go. And honestly, it sounds like that might scare some people listening to that. But I was like, man, $60 is all it costs for that story.
For
I
that
spent
experience.
I
Yeah.
spent $60 to get robbed by the cops in Mexico. I can tell that story the rest of my life.
That's right.
And it's like, And I'm not saying bad things don't happen in the world, and you do need to pay attention. I learned that I should not walk down really dark, quiet streets when I'm in Mexico
Well,
by
that was
myself.
60, maybe 20, with maybe a 20 in your pocket.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I could have got the tour a lot cheaper. The experience could have been a lot cheaper if I'd only had $20 in my pocket. They were nice though. They put the Guatemalan quetzales back in my pocket. I guess they didn't want those. They asked me why I had them. I thought that's a weird question. And then I understood later when I looked at my wallet and all the US dollars were. But I'm not. It's not appropriate behavior. I'm not condoning it. They shouldn't have done it. It's kind of I'm going to say an asshole move. And okay, that's the worst thing that's I've been traveling full time for 2 years. That's the worst thing that's happened to me. And I'm laughing about it and sharing a story about it. And it's like, okay, it cost me $60. So sometimes even the things that you don't want to happen can, I don't know. I don't have any hard feelings.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Like I say, great story.
go to Mexico, just keep away
Love
from the dark
Mexico.
streets. And the other point of that too is like it's not necessarily like the people we think we might have to worry about are not always the ones we need to worry about. But at the same time, I didn't feel like I was in physical danger. I just felt like, well, that's inconvenient. And then the next night, this is actually the other part of the story. The next night, I left my place and I was with a friend, traveling with a friend, and we left to go down to the beach and swim. And I left my phone in the room. I left my credit card in the room. I left like everything in the room except for the key to the room because of what happened the night before. Right. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm being smart. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Left everything in the room, went down to the beach. We went swimming on the beach and lost the key. The key disappeared to the room. And we spent most of the night walking around trying to find somebody. I had one PayPal card, which is not a real credit card. It wasn't an ATM card. You couldn't get cash out of the machine. I had a PayPal card. Could not find a hotel that would take a credit card. Finally found one, but was very reluctant to do it without an ID because, of course, I didn't have any ID with me. Yeah, so that was the second part of the story. And we did find a place. We got a room to spend, a few hours before the sun came up, and we were able to go back and find the landlord to get me into the place. But you know what? It was a great adventure. That was my birthday. That was actually my birthday. And I was like, that was the most unique birthday experience I'd ever had. It was pretty amazing. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. I love what you shared. I think you add a whole nother layer to, like I said, the connection involved in this big world that we're making small through adventure travel. So thank you so much, Janet. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Sounds good. I'm up for it. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Cheers.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.